What's good, y'all? It's your boy Jones, and this is Jones for Sports Podcast. And as always, I'm joined with my hosts, E and Luke. What's good, fellas?
Yo,
And as always, as new is going to be our new Jones for Sports series, That's Debatable, where me, E, and Luke will debate some of the greatest questions in sports history, some of the most debatable questions that some of them can't even be answered. It's all the opinion. And that's basically what we're going to give you in this series. But before we start debating, make sure you guys go check out our Patreon site. On all the links are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So go check it out. You can sign up for as low as $1 to see all these great episodes. So these are really great episodes. I would advise all of you guys to do that. Like I said, on all the Jones of Sports social media. So first, let's get into the first question that we're going to do. And this one is a very debatable question that's been going on for quite a long time. Some changes have been made in the past few months, but it hasn't been made enough to where this question has gone away. So I'll ask the question, and then we'll start off with Luke. The one and done or high school draft. What do you think? Should we keep it one and done, or should we allow high school players to go into the draft, or even extend it to 2 years or 3 years? What are your thoughts?
well, this is a uniquely NBA problem because obviously we've seen the NBA over, I would say, the last 20 years has become very much a players' league. I'm amazed that this is the only casualty of the transition of the league going into a players' first league, and very much so. What I would say is we've seen players like Kevin Garnett, LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant. Those are the first three names that come in my head that came straight from high school and not only had serviceable NBA careers, those are Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
So if a kid is ready and they're good enough, why would you force them to go to college when, let's say, that scholarship could go to a kid who wants to stay at Kentucky for 3 to 4 years, may not end up being, Kobe or LeBron, but a kid like Javon Carter, who played at West Virginia for all 5 years, made the draft and is still in the league, but what's the point? There's no guarantees. If these kids are ready, and we all know they're ready, and the world and every coach in the NBA knows that these kids are ready, let them in. What's the harm? If you're that gifted, why are we going to bog you down and pretend that you're going to do anything but basketball when you step foot on the college campus? Just a waste of everyone's time.
E?
I agree. I know it. The big point is, now you're taking a spot away from a guy who can use those 4 years under a Bill Self, a Coach K, 4 years to develop their game and try to make it to the NBA. And like Luke said, the successes that came out of high school and that made it, they're damn near Hall of Famers. You have your guys like the J.R. Smiths, guys that weren't superstars, but they still make good enough careers.
Yeah.
And my thing to the people who say they should is, we all hear the argument of how these kids play for these universities and they don't even get paid for it. So why are we making them waste more money when they can if they're ready, I'm not saying that word, because if you change that rule now, you'll see a whole bunch of kids who think they're ready, who we all know they aren't, fill this draft class up, get all drafted in the lottery, and be scrubs the following year or two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it real about it. How many kids are going to say, you know what, I don't need to go to college, I should be in the draft this year, and they ain't going to do shit. Because they're not ready for that grown man game, that travel, that all of that. But my thing is, and the big thing to me is, you're risking a lot. You risk injury. Look how much shit was talked when Zion got hurt last year.
Yep.
And the big thing was, should he, and that's everybody had to talk. Should they get rid of the rule, or should Zion stay another year and stuff like that? To me, is if they're ready, let them go.
Yeah.
Just let them play.
One, I definitely agree with both of you, and I knew you both were gonna agree with that answer. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate for this for the reason because I just knew that we all were gonna agree with that because I'm definitely all for someone coming out of high school and taking that opportunity like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and I'm not Durant, Garnett, and everyone else. But like I said, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and for why today's players to take advantage of going to college is one, I'm going to say the odds of those guys becoming LeBron James, Kevin Garnett, and all those guys that you mentioned aren't very high. Even though we know there are a lot of guys out there that are great players that could be in the NBA, but it's very hard to find those guys and get them into the NBA. So the odds are against them to do it because we don't see too many of them. There's a lot of guys that were high school players that got into the NBA didn't work out for them. The other thing is with the NCAA allowing players to be paid for their names and their likeness and stuff like that with games and stuff like that. I think that's a big step in the right direction for the NCAA and for these players to not pressure themselves into going to the NBA, especially if they're not ready, like you said, E, and like you said, Luke, pressuring themselves to go into the NBA when they're not ready. And now they can take a year or two or even more to develop because now they're not worried about their mom not eating. Now they know their mom, their whoever family that they have to take care of is going to be fed because now they're going to be paid while they're in college, not by the college, but by whoever else wants to, sponsor them, things like that. So I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. And like I said, the other thing would be the development. Mm-hmm. We know there's a lot of guys that are still, even after they got rid of, high school players coming into the draft. We still got a lot of one and dones, and same thing. The odds aren't that great for a lot of these one and dones. Now, I mean, it changed a little bit because the game has changed, and it made it a little bit easier for some of these guys to, flourish with the space and all that. And a lot of these guys are shooting threes like crazy now and flourishing in that. So I can understand that. But I think as far as development for these young guys, I think it would be nothing but great things for them to stay a year or two in college just so they can get that development. That way they're not pressured to, because one thing we know, and I think this goes for any sport, now when you get into the league in any sport as a rookie, they want you to perform now, not 2 or 3 years later. They want you to perform now. So I think that's a big deal. If you want to be ready for that type of pressure, make sure you develop all your skills, not just one skill. I think like guys like Trae Young, he came into the league. He's an amazing player. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he's not all the way developed. He's got one great skill. He's a shooter, and he can dribble, but that's not a developed player. But LeBron came into the league having it all done, having it ready, and obviously he got better over time, but that's the type of things that I would love to see these young guys do.
For me, just to go, a little off some of the points you said. To me, the NBA basketball, not the NBA, basketball of the major sports is the one sport where you can pretty much practice and go head to head with the guys who are better than you to raise that level of game. You can't do it in football, and you can't do it in baseball. Half these kids in the summertime are usually going to LeBron's camp, this guy's camp, this guy's camp, and they're working out with these top guys anyway.
Yeah.
And then the other point you said where they feel like their moms or something be fed to a certain extent.
Right. It's not.
But they're only going to be allowed to.
You know that.
What are they getting? $1,200 to show up at this restaurant and do a little meet and greet for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. They're not getting, here's $10,000 for the next couple months.
Well, we're talking about the big guys though, because those are the guys that are really gonna make. Because
but they're still not making that endorsement money they're gonna be making. That's my thing.
I agree with you, but I kind of disagree with you. Only the reason why is because if you're talking about someone coming from out of high school, you gotta be nice to be even mentioned and getting drafted by the NBA. So if that's the case, endorsements are gonna be coming, and they're not gonna be no cheap endorsements. You feel me?
Yeah, but what we gotta understand is when we say they should get rid of the rule, we're talking about the guys who we know.
Right, absolutely. Of course.
Who were projected to be stars. We're not talking about the guys who were projected to be, he'll be a good rotation guy. No,
so
if you're coming straight from high school, not saying right away, but eventually somebody sees potential superstar. Because a big thing we have to stop with the comparisons. Look at Brandon Ingram. Coming out of college, he had the biggest comparison to who? Kevin Durant. He was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant. Obviously, it didn't work this year. He had an all-star year and everything. From what we've seen, he's nowhere close to being the next Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
All right.
I think when we compare guys, whether it's out of high school or out of college, you're kind of hurting them a little because now when they don't live up to being Kevin Durant, a fucking Hall of Famer, probably one of the best offensive scorers we've ever.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me raise one other point too. If you were going to allow these kids the one and done, I'm sorry, if you're going to allow them the high school route where they can go straight in, you're also basically counting on the AAU system to be their developmental learning curve.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you're also at least the NCAA for what, and again, you can argue the corruption of the NCAA until you're blue in the face, but the AAU system is going to be more corrupt than ever because kids are basically going to be taking paychecks. Oh, come play for me. Come play, like even by you, Sean, you got the Gauchos gym. That's one of the most famous AAU teams in the whole city. If they can get kids from up in, 2 counties north or all the way down from Jersey, if they have the money, they can do that. Right. You're putting too much pressure on a system that's unregulated. I don't think that's like at least the NCAA for what it is an established system that does work. Right. And it can at least expose these kids. Like if you're a one and done, you're going to a Power 5 powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Simmons was the only exception where LSU sucks at basketball unless a guy like him is there.
Well,
even then,
we all know he only went there because a family friend is the head coach.
Correct. And even that's bullshit. But when all these kids, when Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Davis or Devin Booker, they're all at Kentucky, we all know they're leaving. They only get one dose of SEC and NCAA tournament experience just to learn how to handle pressure and X amount of eyes on you.
Right.
Like to me, it's either let these kids in at the high school level or do what the NFL does, where you got to at least have 2-3 years of NCAA service.
Yeah, I agree with that last point. I think it should be 2 to 3 years, at least 2. I think you should be in NCAA for at least 2 years.
Yeah, one and done is this the epitome of the worst possible sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Either you're not ready at all and you're going to come out way too early because your head probably got inflated by AAU coaches the last 5 years, or just be a better basketball player. And if you're going to hand these kids like $10 million, like as a lottery pick signing bonus, it'd be nice if they were at least mentally mature enough to handle the implications of a $10 million signing bonus.
Right. Exactly. And that makes me think of like some of these clips that I watch with some of these young high schoolers and who they just believe that they're the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And if they were to leave high school now and come into the league, how bad they would get shitted on. Like they wouldn't doing none of that celebrating, all that crossing up, trying to look cute shit. All that shit would be done if they were to leave the league today and go to, leave high school and go to the league. It'd be a different story for all those guys.
Like for me to say I agree with the whole 2 to 3 years, it would have to show me a significant amount of change. Like the whole thing with let them have a certain, GPA. I know you have to serve to stay on the team or whatever, but look at Ben Simmons. Barely went to classes freshman year.
Yeah.
I gotta step
Like you have to show me that you're in there to learn as well. Like don't just go, all right, I'm gonna stay here for these 2 years, then I'm up out of here. I'm gonna get the passing minimum, and then I'm gonna get up out of here and make my money. Because then now you're wasting. You took a spot off for a kid who needs that.
And that's to offer your point. And like I was saying earlier, how most of these parents that send these kids to school, they understand, the bigger picture for the kid, which is the NBA or the NFL or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Well, for this case, the NBA. But if you're the parent, most of these parents really want their kid to get an education.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. And with that, it will definitely ease that off, especially with them getting paid and them staying 2-3 years to get their education. Now they're learning the game, they're getting their education. There's a requirement now, like, let's say that they put a requirement, like you said, they put a requirement for you to have a certain grade and all these things, and things will start getting better from there. You'll start seeing more kids, doing better in school and being better NBA players, which will only make the NBA better in the long run, instead of having conversations like we had on the last show of bust.
Yeah.
So I think it can only be good for the for both leagues, the NCAA and the NBA. But I do also agree that, I can definitely understand being an 18-year-old having the opportunity to fulfill a dream and going to the NBA.
Because also, last point, look at a kid like Luka Doncic. He was playing pro ball overseas.
Yeah.
So at least the overseas kids, because a lot of them are getting recruited here to American universities.
Yeah.
Right.
But a kid like Doncic, a very young kid, would be the same age as, let's say, Doncic just turned 21. So he's the same age as a college junior or senior.
Mm-hmm.
And is anyone shocked that he's one of the best players in the league? Because you actually gave him time to develop at a caliber, at a level of play that's not the NCAA or not the NBA, rather, but at least he's playing against other professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And have we heard anything about Doncic getting in trouble with any immaturity or any poor decision making? No. I think those years are crucial years for not only your mental and physical makeup, but just for you to learn how to be a professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
College ball at a Kentucky, a Duke, a Carolina, even down to like a Washington State can still give you that time to mature, be a pro. Because being a pro does not mean averaging 25 a game.
Mm-hmm.
That means be averaging X amount, a game, and being, ready, being mature.
Right. Having it. Absolutely, man. Totally agree with that. Moving on to our next question. Oh, and before I go on, to all of the followers that are listening to this, please write your opinion on these questions as we go along with it. Leave comments as well, because we'd love to hear what you guys think as well. The next question, and the reason why I wanted to bring this question up is because it's relevant now, because we're going to find out the answers pretty soon to this question. Some feel like they already have the answer to this question, and that is, who deserves more credit, Brady or Belichick? And we're all football guys here, so I can't wait to hear all our answers. I kind of feel like I know where we're going to go with it, but let's just see where it goes. E, we'll start with you. What do you think? Is it the GOAT Brady, or is it the GOAT Belichick.
All right. This question, we've only seen one-sided. We've only seen Belichick without Brady. We've never seen Brady without Belichick.
Good point.
But for me, from what I seen last year, to me, it has to be Belichick. Brady didn't have the weapons he had last year.
Right.
Didn't put up the numbers he put up. But the Patriots found a way to still win, be in the playoffs like usual, and what carried them was their defense. Belichick is like probably the most complete coach we've seen in a long time. Offense and defense. Nowadays, you got a one-sided head coach, and whatever side he coaches, they have a coordinator for the other side.
Yep.
Belichick's done it when Brady was hurt. Still got them to the playoffs with Matt Castle.
Yep.
He's done it when Brady was suspended. Did it with Jimmy G, and then Jimmy G got hurt. Then he did it with Jacoby Brissett. And to me, it showed how hurt Brady was not having a Gronk last year. Not having this guy, that guy. And what was the big story going into the offseason? Brady said, I don't need to be paid as much. Get me weapons. The team he went to has probably a top 6 receiving core.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, and Godwin.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, it has to be Belichick. He gets the most out of everybody. And what was the biggest knock on Brady all these years? He's a system quarterback. And whose system is that? It sure as hell hasn't always been Josh McDaniel's system.
Yeah.
Belichick has made guys head coaches, and then we get those head coaching jobs. It shows you they're not head coaches. But just that rub of being on Belichick's staff gets you a look. Look at the fucking Giants' new head coach.
Yeah, Jesus.
None of us seen that coming.
Yeah.
I gotta go with Belichick. I'm sorry.
Luke, I know you've been itching for this question. Go ahead.
Before you go, just gotta say, me and Luke are AFC guys.
That's also correct.
So we've seen a shit ton of Brady.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. Especially Luke. Luke knows for sure. He's played them a few. Oh, actually, Denver too.
Yeah, we've had Brady a lot of times.
Yeah. I think, well, he made the valuable points of pretty much saying that Belichick is he's the unicorn when it comes to being a successful coach and a very successful GM at the same time. So on the years when the weapons weren't necessarily there, the team around the quarterback was always good enough to at least maybe weren't Super Bowl caliber, but they were getting the fucking playoffs. They were still winning the division.
Right.
You know, there's got to be something said for that. I will say this to play devil's advocate. Clearly, I'm a Belichick guy here, but I will say this. Bruce Arians' system, just for comparison's sake, Bruce Arians has a very well-respected offensive system. We've seen Ben Roethlisberger win a Super Bowl with it. We saw Jameis throw 30 picks with it. So you can have a good system, but if you don't have the right guy running, what's the point of building an airplane if you don't have the right pilot?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's always going to be that argument. And this is like, look at the quarterbacks coming out now that are getting drafted. A lot of these guys end up getting drafted because of the skill set they have would cater the system that they would be running. So you're trying to find the next Tom Brady you're trying to find that Brady to Belichick kind of link. Then what happens when these guys leave? Yeah. We saw Aaron Rodgers struggle like crazy when McCarthy left the Packers.
Yeah.
He figured it out because he's Aaron Rodgers. But we saw the whole preseason and all through camp, nothing but problems.
I mean, yeah, because we can even turn it the other way where it could show, like, Brady's success. Like, look at Peyton Manning, for an example.
Yeah.
He went to Denver after surgery and for the first, 2 seasons looked like the same old Peyton Manning.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Went to 2 Super Bowls, won one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
You didn't have to say all that, but it's okay.
Hey, at least he won one. I had to throw that in there.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm not going to play devil's advocate for this one. I agree with you guys. It's definitely Belichick, and I've been advocating that for years now to everybody, even my boy Mikey. Shout out to my boy Mikey.
This is the one probably one question that can answer itself this year.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
You know?
We're definitely going to find out for sure. But for me, to all the points that you guys said, to me, it's Brady. And I mean, not Brady, it's Belichick. And a lot of people want to make the argument that Brady made a lot of those receivers. I will go as far to say that Belichick made those receivers. You know why? Because he had the confidence. He knew that with Brady as their quarterback, they would be good. He knew that. You can't just put that all on Brady. Oh, no, Brady's going to make this player. A quarterback can make any player good.
I
But
mean,
you have to,
you say made receivers. Who's the one guy you could say, like, let's think about it. Randy Moss was Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Wes Welker went on to Denver, still played good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one person we probably could say is Julian Edelman because we haven't seen him in another system.
Or Gronk.
Right.
Well, obviously, or Gronk. But then, what else
Yeah.
can you say? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's certain people that like.
Because to be honest, I can give you Chris Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a slouch in Buffalo.
Yeah, no one knew I didn't know who he was until
I knew about Chris Hogan out of Buffalo. When
I
I went
had
to the
no idea
Patriots, I
who
said,
he
"Oh
was
shit, they got another weapon."
until he came to New England.
Yeah.
But that's because that goes back to my point. That goes back to Belichick making that decision. Belichick has made – think about all the decisions Belichick has made to make that team better. All the signings, all the big name signings that didn't get paid max dollars.
You have a great coach when you say, can you imagine if this guy went to that team for that coach? Not to say to play with this player or that player. Like last episode on Locker Room Sundays when I said, can we imagine Jadeveon Clowney signing with the Patriots and playing under Belichick?
Yep.
Right. Exactly. We talk about the system which he created.
Yeah. Well, and shit. Let's get real here. Belichick might make Matt Slater the only potential Hall of Famer whose
Special
only
team.
accolades were special teams.
Yeah.
That's facts.
Belichick's eye for talent is
Unbelievable.
He's an evil fucking genius, but he's an evil fucking genius.
Yeah.
It really is unfucking believable.
No, and also, when's the last time any of us in recent memory can honestly say that they've immensely fucked up a draft pick?
Yeah.
I can't.
The guy constantly trades out of the first round just to stockpile picks and fill a team with.
Yeah. Gronk was a second round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Brady was a 7th. Like that's the one argument I'm glad none of us made, that Brady wasn't the starter in college or nothing like that, because that can go to the argument similar to the one and dones. Yeah.
Who's prepared going into college?
Right.
Right. Exactly. And then the other thing that people forget when it comes to Brady and Belichick is Brady had to buy in to that system, to that culture.
Mm-hmm.
But even when Brady became who he is today, being the big name that he is, he still had to follow Belichick's rules. And where is he now?
It's called, last time I checked, it's called the Patriot way, not the Tom Brady way.
Exactly. So that just tells you it all. And that tells you it all.
Yeah.
It tells you it all. So for all those, Patriot fans that's out there, I'm sorry to say, it's Belichick.
Well, Patriot fans should be happy we're saying it's Belichick, because he's the guy still there.
Believe it or not, I know a lot of Patriot fans, and they are all Brady before Belichick. All Brady.
Well, then have fun.
Which means they're all Tampa fans now.
will
Yeah.
have one room.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you this right now. The NFC South is not the AFC East. You got to
Right.
go against Drew Brees twice a year.
Matty Ice.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
And
tough.
you got to.
Now the other thing I want to
You
say.
have one guy in that division that we probably won't talk about this episode. We'll talk about the next episode where he was brought up the other day about not being the best receiver in football.
Mhm.
Julio Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's a topic for next
For another
episode.
day.
I know.
Because
I know.
brought that up.
Oh, God, I know.
So he's not gonna have an easy walkthrough, and there's some good defenses in that division.
The last thing I want to say before we move on is this would have been a better, Brady going to the Bucs would have been better served a couple years ago. Because then we would have got to see Brady.
We're not talking about a 42-year-old quarterback.
Right. So it's good. Even if Brady, if Brady tanks or whatever,
Listen,
isn't
we're not. There's no way.
There's
There's no need to shy around it. Brady's past his prime.
Right. And I think all three of us can agree that we're basing it off of what we've already seen with them together, not what's going to happen after. If Brady tanks and he doesn't do shit,
yeah,
we expected that. He's 43 years old. He's not going to get any better. But Belichick's mind is continuously evolving with the game.
Let me raise one more point. A 42-year-old quarterback just got a $30 million a year contract. How many quarterbacks have been lucky enough to play behind an O-line where their body is still cooperating with them when they're 42 years old?
And that's all due to –
guess what? Your coach / GM kept you upright for all but 1 year.
Yep. Good point. Great fucking
Let's be fucking real. You didn't pick your O-line. You didn't pay them. You didn't draft them.
Absolutely. Great point. Now moving on to the final question that we have of the night. And I brought this one up for you two, especially because I didn't know which way you guys are going to go. So I wanted to see where you're going to go.
This is probably the biggest debate in baseball right now.
Definitely. And that's why we had to bring it up. Let's get it spicy from the jump. Now, the question is, does guys like Barry Bonds and other guys of the steroid era deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? I'll start it off being the non-baseball guy that I am, because I want to end it with the knowledgeable guys that you guys are in baseball. So, my opinion is that Barry Bonds does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And the reason why I say that is because take away the steroid era, he still was on the projection to be a Hall of Famer. Now, who knows what would have happened to his career later on without steroids, but I still think he would have been great enough to be, maybe not, he wouldn't have been the home run king or whatever the case may be, but I still think offense, because when we think about Barry Bonds, we think about like the young guys at least, would think about just home runs. It's not about just him being home runs.
No,
this guy was an 8-time Gold Glove. Like he was great on both sides of the ball. So that can't be taken away. And then there was someone, I read an article, and I forgot the guy's name, but I don't want to, say I stole his quote. But I'll say his name when I find it. But he said, if we're going to count all the records that he's broken and everything that he's done, then why not count him into the Hall of Fame? If you're going to count the records, if you're going to count everything he's done, why not give him the credit for it? You know what I'm saying? So that's my whole point when it comes to Barry Bonds and all of the guys that are not, that haven't been voted in because of the steroid era. Now, to the other side of that, I want to say I definitely understand where the writers don't want to put them in because of steroids. That's definitely a huge cheating thing. And for some guys, I think, I don't want to say all of those guys, but some guys, it made their career. Steroids made their career, made them to what they are. But there are guys on that list that I like Barry Bonds, who I believe deserve to be on it regardless. So that's my answer as far as that. goes.
Yeah, Luke.
So I'll put it like this. So you said that Bonds, who I agree was a Hall of Famer before he started clearly taking the roids.
Mm-hmm.
The same argument applies to Roger Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
And A-Rod.
It does not apply to Mark McGwire
No.
or Sammy Sosa.
No.
Right. That's the point I was making with.
So here's what I'm getting at. If it's abundantly, you'll remember this. We played the San Diego Padres at the Yankees did in the 1998 World Series.
Yes.
Do you remember the Padre third baseman? Because at the time, he was one of the best third basemen in the game.
I know who you're talking about, but now I'm like blanking on the name.
Ken Caminiti
Yes, Caminiti.
was a obvious steroid guy.
Yes, he was.
Unfortunately, it killed him. And that was after his playing career.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there's so many people from that era, and this includes Alex Rodriguez, other players that had these prolonged careers. You have to, if you're going to let them in, you have to acknowledge that there was a steroid era in baseball. It's a black eye for the game, but guess what? We got another shot to the face right now with the fucking Astros thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to the Black Sox World Series.
Yep.
And that was over 100 years ago. So who's to say that baseball is some perfect game where everything is – it's the perfect game with a really, really, really fucked up history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And case in point, but I don't know, Sean, you're not going to know this. EU might. Do the names Doc Ellis and Oil Can Boyd ring any bells in the head?
No.
Doc Ellis pitched a no-hitter on acid in the 70s for the Pirates.
Nice.
Shit.
Oil Can Boyd did the same thing for the Red Sox, but was on cocaine.
Mm.
The entire 1986 Mets team was on cocaine,
Shit.
and they won a ring. But you're gonna give the Mets no asterisk in history, despite the fact that it's abundantly obvious that those guys and all of their crowning achievements were on drugs. Granted, they may not have the same. I highly doubt that acid is going to give you the same performance as steroids, but cocaine damn sure can for a couple hours. You can't either just acknowledge that there's been drug use or don't.
All right.
And just make a decision. If you're going to nitpick, like we've seen years where the Hall of Fame is either taking one guy, none, or like six.
Yeah.
Just fucking pick one. Just
Yeah.
acknowledge it or don't.
I mean, that goes to the point where Sean says if you're going to acknowledge their stats, you might as well acknowledge that they deserve to be in the Hall.
Right.
My thing with the Baseball Hall of Fame is it has probably the worst voting committee out there.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that we see Derek Jeter miss out on unanimous by one vote because one guy feels like he shouldn't be voted in on his first year back, we need to get that shit over with.
Yeah.
If a fucking guy's a Hall of Fame, he's a fucking Hall of Famer. What's the difference of making it this year or next year on the fucking ballot?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, my answer to the question is, yeah, the guy should just be put in. But we should, and my thing is, it should be looked at the way Luke brought it up.
Right.
All right, Barry Bonds, let's look at your stats before the so-called steroid era. You was on pace for this. You was on pace to be a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
Sosa, McGuire's, all were just home run guys.
Right.
The fact that Sosa got caught with a corked bat makes it even
Yeah.
worse if in his case that all he is a fucking cheater.
But so did George Brett with the pine tar bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing is, in baseball,
there's too many instances.
That's what I was going to say. To me, if you look through all baseball history, there's always ways guys found a way to cheat.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we have the Astros situation, cheating with technology.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you're going to let all these cheaters be acknowledged, then acknowledge them in the Hall too.
So my thing is, if that's the case, would we hold down the line, let's say it continues, are we going to hold back Altuve, Bregman, Springer, Correa?
You kind of can't because the league office said don't bother.
You know,
Right.
and then you have guys who played in that era who weren't even taking steroids who are getting hurt by this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, and then you don't give credit to the guy. Look how long it took fucking Messina to get into the Hall of Fame when he pitched in that era in the American League East.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Come on. To me, the biggest question is not even should guys get in. Is should baseball change the whole way of fucking voting when it comes to the Hall of Fame? Because their committee absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree. They have to do something.
Look at the current list of inductees. Jeter. There's been an argument about Larry Walker.
Yeah.
That he's a fringe Hall of Famer. How the fuck is Larry Walker a fringe Hall of Famer? From what I saw, that was a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Yeah, I believe so.
100%.
I believed he was a Hall of Famer when I seen him playing in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I know he gets the thing because he Colorado. So if that's the case, we're Yankee fans. How many left-handed hitters should be held against it having a short porch?
Right.
Or look at right-handed hitters in Boston when all they got to do is pepper the fucking wall and you got
really.
a double.
Right. Well, if you look, so in a couple of years, when Nolan Arenado comes up for Hall of Fame candidacy, are you going to hold the Coors effect against Arenado?
Exactly.
Or if you're going to hold that over a guy like Arenado, then move the Rockies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is bullshit. And like he said, you're talking with guys who, like Peter Gammons, great baseball reporter. He's like 90 now. Every time he votes, he's comparing shit to guys who lost service time to go serve in Vietnam and Korea.
Yeah.
Like, the game has evolved
Absolutely.
to such a point where we understand that, technology is catching up, but technology is not the periphery around the diamond. It is on the diamond as well. Gloves are not, pillows that you would find at, Kohl's anymore.
Yeah.
Everything, cleats, everything is better. Batting gloves, everything is better, but no one gives any attention or care to that. That's
Right.
obviously helping.
Exactly. You can make that argument in football as well, and other sports as well. So
And let's also not forget, and this has nothing to do with the Astros, but the league, obviously, they will never admit this, was fucking with the ball.
Yeah, huge ball.
For the sake of home runs. So now you're going to tell me in 15 years, when, let's say, Alonso comes up for a Hall of Fame vote, you're going to hold that against him, his Rookie of the Year?
Right.
Because the ball was obviously juiced?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And now does that in the same way that can affect negative on the pitchers?
Right.
Playing in the juice ball era.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, like what you guys were saying, this, and like you said, Luke, this sport has a very bad history, and it makes it very difficult. But one thing that we all three can agree on is, if it has this bad history and you let all the other guys in, why can't you just let them all in? That's basically what our point is with when it comes to that. So,
well, hold on. If we're arguing, and this also has to extend beyond the steroid guys,
mm-hmm.
Pete Rose needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Great point. Yeah. And he made his argument for it.
Yeah. And the fact that Pete Rose is not in, but also to the fact that the Cincinnati Reds can't retire his number, also bullshit. If you look at the Great American Ballpark, if they have those smokestacks in center field, there's 13 of them or 14 of them because of Pete Rose. They retired it. They found a way to do it, and kudos to them and that architect. But the fact that you have to install 14 fucking smokestacks in the stadium to retire your greatest ever player's number, and that's not even like this. Come on, like stop with this shit.
Yeah,
you're gonna let the Astros keep their World Series, but you're not gonna let the greatest hitter of all time in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense, and they got to change the ways. Like he said, they got to come up with better guidelines that.
I mean, it just goes to show you this is why baseball is trying to do this facelift that they're trying to do now. What is the big complaint against baseball? They're too old. It's an old man sport. You want to attract the younger crowd, and you got to change shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's true. New faces, new writers, or whoever's voting.
You know, I look at this. This can sound so as much as a Yankee bias comment as you want, but me and Luke watch the Yankees. The only way for Yankees to win awards is to run away with it.
Yeah, really.
The fact that Aaron Boone wasn't even manager of the year, playing with a fucking AAA team last year, and what's said? Oh, he's supposed to win that many games. He had the highest payroll in baseball. Yeah, we had the highest payroll in baseball on the injured list.
DL, yeah. Let me give you one better. Miguel Andujar lost Rookie of the Year
of a guy because he could pitch and hit.
to Ohtani, who missed half the year and blew his arm out.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Andujar was breaking doubles records set by Joe DiMaggio. If you're so focused on history, then fucking be consistent.
Right there.
It's too much bias when it comes to these voting.
That's what it is.
In baseball. That's like why I give credit to like the NBA and stuff like that. You see Giannis go out and dominate the way he did. Everybody said he should be MVP. He got MVP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in the NBA, they're also finding ways to not give everything to LeBron. If Giannis goes off, give it to him. If Russell Westbrook averages a triple-double for the whole fucking year, you better give it to Russell Westbrook.
Because honestly, we can speak this in baseball. Mike Trout is going to be the best player every year.
Yes.
He's the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
But how valuable are you to your team if you play all 162 and your team still doesn't make the playoffs?
Mm-hmm. Or you miss a month.
So,
which is guaranteed for Trout.
And then your team still doesn't make the playoffs.
Right.
This is why baseball needs to change that it needs.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to get better. They got to change their ways so we don't have these conversations about great fucking people that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. To the original question, though, you at least were starting to see that players like Bonds and Clemens, who, in my opinion, had better careers than McGuire and Sosa, their percentages every year are getting higher.
Yeah.
So at least if you're going to hold them accountable, fine. If they make it in, don't put the asterisks over their fucking black. That's so disrespectful. Just ban them from baseball or let them the fuck in.
Right.
It's very black or white. It's very black or white.
It has to be.
It's very black or white. Pick a side. It's either
there should be no gray area for it.
No, not at all.
Absolutely. Well, that's the last question for the episode. Great debate, fellas. Like I said, if you're listening, make sure that you leave a comment on your opinion on all of the questions that we ask, and share it. Let everyone know about this because we want to get as much people involved with listening to this and writing your opinions as well, because we know everyone has an opinion to these questions. Everyone has a different question. Even though we had one question where we all agreed, there's going to be few people who all disagree. You know what I mean? So that's what makes these questions so good.
Mikey, if you don't get in the comment section and defend your boy, I'm calling you out.
Yeah, Mikey, we shouting you out right now. Defend your boy Brady. But that's it for your boy Jones, Luke, and E. That's Debatable. Jones for Sports. We make sports better. Peace.